Hi everyone. Thanks for listening to the presentation today. I'm Scott.
And I'm Beck.
And I'm Tracy, and we're Policy and Development Officers with ARC Scotland. We facilitate the Scottish Transitions Forum, and we're here to tell you a bit about principles into practice.
Several years ago now, we published the Principles of Good Transition 3, which identifies 7 key principles to support young people with any kind of additional support need as they're making the transition into young adult life. The principles makes it easy for everyone to see what organisations should be doing to make sure that young people and their families have a good experience. They are there to make sure that transition planning and support is as effective as possible. They pull together everything the law says about transition, plus what young people and families themselves have told us what works best for them. They have been endorsed by the Scottish Government, national bodies and many organisations that provide support for young people with additional support needs. Over recent years, they've informed local planning and practice across the country, which is great. However, we're still hearing from young people and families who are having a really difficult experience of transitions. We also hear from professionals who are still struggling with how they coordinate and plan support for young people at this time of their lives. So over the past few years, we've developed Principles into Practice, which is a draft national framework to support the practical implementation of those 7 key principles. The framework's essentially practical. It's all about doing. It's about creating really robust, practical guidance and evaluation measures that we can demonstrate actually makes a difference. Involving young people and their parents and carers is essential to Principles into Practice. We want to make sure that services are evaluated and improved based on lived experiences. Transitions occur throughout a person's life. However, it's well known and well documented that young adult transitions can be particularly challenging for many young people with additional support needs and for their families. We want to make sure that transitions are as straightforward as possible, with young people at the heart of any change. To support this, we need to make sure that there's a joined-up approach across all services and that everyone involved is working well together. Using Principles into Practice will lead to better support for young people and their families, better communication between all involved, greater awareness of people's lived experiences, and greater understanding of the needs of families. We're going to have a tried and tested approach that can be used across Scotland. With support from the Scottish Government, we are trialling Principles into Practice in 10 local authority areas over 2 years. Of these 10 areas, 2, including Falkirk, have been selected to undertake an in-depth trial with greater support from ourselves. Principles into Practice will help make a real difference to the lives of young people who need additional support and will ensure that they're at the centre of all transition planning for their future. By the end of the trial, there will be a fully developed and tested framework as well as tools and resources to support its implementation. That will be made available to every local authority area in Scotland.
Transition was an experience that has impacted me in a lot of ways because it sounds so simple, but in actuality, it's a lot more complex when you actually put it into practice. Because with transition, you don't just, you leave school and that's it. You have to it has to be a gradual process that's built up. It can't be just, shoehorned. It needs to have people involved in the planning process. It needs parents, it needs lecturers, it needs support services, and of course it needs the young person at the center of the operation. Because if the young person doesn't feel like they're at the center of the planning process, then how do they expect to make a smooth transition when they don't even feel like they're being listened to?
I think the transition process for us as a family is about him gaining independence skills wherever possible, about him having a purpose every day, about him enjoying life and enjoying meeting people, building confidence and basically leading his best life possible.
And that's the biggest thing about transition. It's finding what is right for your family. Andrew's definition is cerebral palsy, but that such a wide scope, you know what I mean? And I think it's getting an individual package or transition that will actually work for that individual is the biggest thing in all of this.
So the reason Falkirk Council got involved in the pilot for Principles into Practice was really to improve transitions for our young people and to support our families around that whole process, because transitions are a hugely important stage in every young person's life, and in fact in everybody's life. And it's the biggest change for our young people is from when they leave school and become an adult. And that's quite a complex time for everybody, but for our children with additional support needs, it's even more complex, even more challenging, and it causes a lot more anxiety definitely for our parents as well as our young people. So I suppose what we wanted to do was really address all of those concerns, because our parents were really supportive of us as well, and they wanted to get it better for other parents coming forwards. And what they found was there was examples of excellent practice, but then there was also examples where it wasn't great, and it wasn't a great experience for them. And if it's not great, it was really upsetting and creates anxiety at a time which is already anxious from that school leaver age. So it was really important that we did something to address that and make sure that we were given the best service and support that we could from Falkirk Council. And so we'd been asked by our heads of education and heads of social work to have a discussion between Children with Disabilities team, education, adult services, and our head teacher from Karen Grange High School. And we had a really good conversation, and everybody was on board to think about how we could work much more closely together to make it a much more seamless transition for our young people, and that the right support was available at the right time, and that parents understood what that support was. And we also had the new temporary post of the role of an ASN transitions coordinator created for Falkirk Council, and it was testing out the role of that, whether we needed it, and what did we need to expand on that to make sure that every child and family in Falkirk Council who had significant additional support needs had a key contact who could kind of be a bit more advocacy for them and support them through that process between children's and adult services. So with that knowledge and with the conversation that we had, we really identified that we wanted to, it was a key priority for Falkirk Council to improve that pathway and that journey from a child 0 to 24 within Falkirk Council, within all of our partner agencies and services. And we all knew about Principles into Practice. We'd read the document, we used it in our practice, but what we wanted to analyse was how can that tool support us to make sure that that best practice that happens in pockets is happening everywhere. And so we really got involved because we wanted to work with the experts, and we wanted that impetus and drive to help us really analyse what exactly we were doing and make the changes that would have the impact. Because if you just think things are going well and you just evaluate it and you don't really dig deep to look at what is happening and what could be improved, you're just going to make assumptions, and you're going to always have parents who have not had the best experience, and then young people who are find that their transition journey isn't the best that it should have been. So it's to stop us falling short in any of that, and that's the reason why we got involved, because it's hugely important, and the 2-year pilot would really help us progress things, and then that 14 plus would give us a model for the birth on all the transitions from birth to 14. So what we hope the impact will be of this project and the work that we're doing is that we will have a really effective, efficient, streamlined service for young people and parents, that people will be working in genuine partnership, and that will include our young people and our parents and families, and that we'll really be getting it right for every child, and that should underpin everything that we're doing for our children and our families. But our ultimate aim is to really have that much better person-centred planning for our young people, that this is their transition journey, that we are putting them at the centre, and that our planning reflects the journey and the destination that they want and what their best life is and how we can help get them there.
It's not just happening in these neat little boxes. It's everything's going on at the same time. So at the same time, I'm dealing with my mental health, I'm dealing with my physical health, I'm dealing with a gender transition, I'm dealing with a move of areas. All these things And that's life. You don't just have one thing happen to you at a time. People have to remember that while you're going through these transitions and these processes, it's not just one transition, one process. It's everything at once going on.
Families tell us there are 3 things that make the most difference when it comes to transitions: information, planning, and feeling you're in control of the process rather than feeling like it's controlling you. Information, because it's hard to be sure you're making the right choices if you don't know enough about what's out there. And good planning is important even if you don't know exactly where your young person is headed. It helps you keep things on track while you figure it out. As for feeling in control of the process, well, this is your young person's transition and your family's life. It's important that it works for you, not the person next door or down the road. Compass is a new digital tool that's being developed to help, and we're asking parents and young people in Falkirk to try it as part of Principles into Practice. There are 2 versions, one for parents and carers and one for young people themselves. They look a bit different, but they both support the transition process by providing information that's tailored to your situation at the time that's right for you. Right now, Compass is just a prototype. It's not finished yet, but we're asking people to use it and tell us how they get on so we can iron out any problems. Eventually it will be available to families across Scotland, but before then we want to be really confident people find it useful. Around 30 families in Falkirk are already using it, so if you'd like to give it a try, we'd love to hear from you. So, how does it work? Let's take a quick look at the version for parents and carers to give you an idea. You can use Compass on a mobile phone, a tablet or a laptop. This is the first screen you'll see. We ask you to set up an account and to answer questions about your young person. This is so Compass can provide information and advice that is specific to you. We store your information securely, and no one, not even us, can link your answers directly to you or your young person. Before you sign up, you can check out our privacy policy for full details of what happens to the information you give us. Compass uses your answers to create a timeline that shows you where you are in the transition process and what you should expect to happen next. It also lets you explore a number of transition topics, create a list of actions, and track how you're getting on. You can see how this works here, in Benefits and Finance. You'll be asked questions to identify what information is likely to be useful for you, and Compass uses your answers to give you links for more information. The Young Person's tool covers a lot of the same ground, but focuses on helping young people explore what's important to them, to understand what transition involves, and to start thinking about their next steps and who can help. The other thing Compass does is collect your views about your transition journey, like how you feel things are going and whether you're getting the support you need. Some of this will be shared with your local authority to help them improve their services. Don't worry, this is all anonymous. Your answers are completely separated from your personal details and put together with feedback from other parents and carers, so no one can link anything entered here to you or your young person. This kind of information is really important to make transitions better for families in the future. Lastly, there's a glossary to explain unfamiliar terms or jargon. We've put a lot in here already, but if you have any suggestions for terms we haven't covered, we'd love to hear from you. Compass can guide you step by step for as long as you need it. The earlier you start using it, the more time you have to work out what's best for you. That can really help reduce stress once your young person is into their final year. But it's never too late. After all, lots of things may still need deciding even after they've left school. If you or your young person would like to give it a try, we'd love to hear from you. Contact me, Tracy Francis, or my colleague Scott. Our emails are here, and we'll help you get started. We're hoping Compass will be a game changer for families, and people's reaction so far has been really good. So hopefully this has given you the confidence to give it a go.
I think we've all experienced the transition from even just primary to secondary. There's always been some transition, early years to primary. But the most daunting of all is certainly to adult services. And I think what you are trying to do with Principles into Practice and the Compass will be of huge comfort, but it's a much needed resource. It's a much needed resource.
I think you have to get to know as many people around your young person as you can so that you can help to build those bridges. You have to put yourself out of it. You can't just go and say, I want this. You have to give. You can't. I think the best thing is always have a solution. Don't go in with a problem. You have to have a solution if you want people to listen to you, because if you're saying something's wrong, then it's because something isn't working well for you, and you need to think about how to find that solution. And you will know, because you're the one working together all the time. You'll know what works. Just keep learning.
Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions or you want to get involved, please don't hesitate to get in touch.